Hello, I'm Nicole, a cottage witch. Welcome back to my channel. This is a little collection, partly vlog style, I guess you could say, of some of the herbal concoctions I made, mostly in June. I live in Alberta in Canada, so some of these plants might have, their season might be over where you live. But yeah, these are some of the plants that I've gardened or foraged and made little concoctions, syrups and salves and that sort of thing out of. I'll probably post another one maybe sometime in August with some of the midsummer concoctions. So these are the late spring, early summer ones. And I hope you enjoy. I will switch over now to the crafting. Today I got to harvest some of the first herbs from my balcony. The first up was oregano that I had plenty of. Well, to be fair, I could have harvested mint earlier and probably should have. I'll hang some of it up to dry. But I was very happy that the oregano seems to be doing all right. And then I also harvested some thyme, which is growing in amongst several other plants, raspberry and zucchini and cucumber, and patio lights and wine bottles that are my backup watering system for those 30-degree days. And I harvested some parsley as well. That took a while to get going this year for some reason, but it seems to be thriving now, so that's lovely. I'll enjoy that. Next up was the lemon thyme, which had actually started flowering, so apparently I need to stay more on top of that. But I was able to get some of that, and it smells absolutely delightful. Then I was able to get some rosemary. I've had really bad luck with rosemary in the past. I don't know if it just doesn't like pots or it doesn't like the climate on my balcony or what, but it's doing all right so far this year. All right, I have picked some lemon balm, parsley, rosemary, thyme, lemon thyme, plantain, and basil. That leaf's not looking so well. And then I will dry these and make them into a herbed oil, I think. I always enjoy it when my kitchen looks a bit apothecary-like. I think that's good fun. The first thing I did was to set the spruce tip syrup to strain because it was quite thick. And then I started straining the poplar bud oil, which I'm going to make into a balm of Gilead. So I'll strain that out and then add some beeswax, melt that over a bain-marie, and mix it all together into a sort of salve for muscle aches and that sort of thing. I've also got some, in the summer I often make iced tea, herbal iced tea usually, because I go through a lot of it and there's a limit to how much caffeine I really need throughout the day. I'm using up some of the herbs from last season that are the oldest, particularly the ones that are growing really well or that I know I've gotten a lot of. So today I've made a tea with plantain, which I've been working with a lot lately, and rose petals and calendula flowers, because I need some brightening up, I think. Just to lift my spirits for the last few days. And then I used a mix of rose hips and hawthorn berries for the most part. I think there were some rose petals in that mix as well. And then lastly, I added some frozen fruit. Not for any particular herbal reason, so much as because it was in my freezer and needed getting stuff. So, using that up, it's cherries and strawberries and rhubarb, and as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit frostbitten, so it's time to use those up. And they don't sweeten up the iced tea a lot. I don't like really sweet iced tea, but they do add a touch of sweetness and a touch of that just berry summery flavor, which I enjoy. So I'll let that sit on the counter until it cools, and then in the fridge overnight, and I'll make it into iced tea tomorrow. And then I finished straining off the poplar buds, which you can see there. They've been soaking in, is that olive oil? I think it's either olive oil or jojoba oil. It might be jojoba oil. For, when was poplar bud season? 3 weeks, maybe? Possibly a hair longer, but I don't think very much longer. So I probably could have done this last week, but sometimes I just don't get to these things, so they get to sit a little longer, which doesn't seem to harm them any, at least if it's just a week or so. So then I added some beeswax. I tend to never measure anything. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. In the case of salves, it tends to make them an uneven consistency between different types of salves, because I don't measure things. So I started trying to measure things here, which I should write down before I forget it for the next time, which I may or may not reference and may just eyeball. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I'll have much success with the consistent measuring department, but it'll be lovely, I'm sure. Whichever texture, if it's a softer salve or a firmer one. I'm not really fussy about these things, since I just make them for me, not to sell, so I don't really feel like I have to be super consistent in terms of texture. There's a book I've been reading lately called Concoctions with Plants that has not so much a recipe, but instructions for mead and various other herbal concoctions. And I've never made mead before. I thought because I didn't have the right airlock sort of lid that I couldn't make it. But the book calls for just muslin over the jar and wild yeast. So I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? I'll give it a go. So I've got my wildflower honey that I got from the farmer's market here, from Wildflowers, I think quite near to me, maybe in the foothills. And it's delicious. It's so good. Mixed it with some elderberries. Again, terrible with the measuring. Just eyeballed that one. I've been waiting for a special use for the elderberries because I love them, but I don't have ready access to them. So I had this jar of dried elderberries. So I added that to the honey, and then I believe the recipe called for 5 parts water to 1 part honey. And my water is chlorinated, so I let it sit out on the counter for a little bit so that the chlorine could evaporate. Mixed it all together with a spoon that was much too short. I really could have made this easier for myself, but why would I do that? Yeah, so I just mixed together honey, water, and elderberries. And then I'll cover it in some muslin and just let it sit for, I think it's a week or 2, depending on how sweet versus how alcoholic. I can't speak today. How sweet versus how alcoholic you'd like it to be. So I'll check that tomorrow and see if it's bubbling yet. And I've strained the spruce tip syrup. I actually had to add a bit of water to dissolve some of the remaining brown sugar that hadn't dissolved yet. but that seemed to go fairly well. And I'll just keep mixing the balm of Gilead, the poplar bud balm, periodically until it starts to firm up a bit, which will probably take about half an hour or so because it's not a very hot day. And that'll be it for today. Tomorrow we'll check on the mead and strain and make a balm of another herb oil blend of just general skin soothing and healing herbs that I'd forgotten that I had. So that's been steeping for, probably 3 months. So I'd better get to that. As you can see, some of the spruce tip syrup was still on the thick side, so I'll probably shake that up over the next couple of days and see if it'll all meld together into one consistent syrupy consistency. And these are the final, or in the case of the elderberry mead, semi-final results. I've got the balm of Gilead, which is for muscle aches and pains, a soothing balm for skin irritations, and a spruce tip syrup that I have to figure out something to do with. I'm thinking maybe sticky toffee pudding. Is that what it's called? I've never made that, but I might have to try it with this. All right, my herbs have dried, I think, pretty fully. I'm putting them in oil, so I didn't want them to be growing mold on me or anything. And really, all I'm going to do is scrunch them up and pull them apart a little bit and cover them in oil. And if you're spiritually inclined, you can talk to the plants. I do talk to plants all the time. You can thank the plant. You can ask the plants for certain intentions to help you, to nourish you. Now my whole kitchen smells like rosemary, which is not something I'm going to complain about because it's beautiful. My inner 8-year-old or so enjoys the idea of potion making. So that's what I always think of when I make things like this. Just carefully adding all of the specific ingredients that we need. In my usual can't be bothered to measure anything sort of way. I'll just hope for the best. When it comes to herbs and oil, it usually turns out, unless you go well overboard. Ooh, that one I'm going to leave out to dry it a little bit longer. Oh, it smells so good. And now it smells rosemary-ish and lemon-ish in here, which I'm not complaining about. I am grateful to these plants, though, for teaching me how to connect back to the earth and how intertwined we all are. Even the little ones like thyme, that look especially little when they're dried, are so important. And with climate change going bananas in my province this year, it's just sort of extra reminder. I'll let that one dry a bit more too. To take care of each other, to take care of the earth that has always provided for us. and that we don't need to destroy in the process. So that little bit of rambling done, I'm going to finish scrunching up my herbs, cover them in a bit of oil. I'll probably have to go, there's a Greek grocery store near me, which I love. They also get in things from West Asia and the Balkans and just that sort of general area, Italy. And it's much cheaper than the Italian grocery stores in town. So I do tend to go there for my shopping that can be done at the regular grocery store. And it's a delight. And I might find some other treasures, who knows. And then I'll just let it sit for probably a couple of weeks. I might not be able to resist using some of it before then. But the idea is that if it steeps for 2 weeks, it'll be more flavorful, more potent. And all these beautiful plants will have a chance to meld together a little bit more. Today I'm gonna make some pine cone syrup. Well, start some pine cone syrup. I think these were from a lodgepole pine. I'm not really very good at identifying specific types of, oh, I need my funnel before I make too much of a mess. I'm not very good at identifying different types of pine trees, but I think those are lodgepole. Alright, breaking out the canning funnel, because I am too messy for this. Really, it's ridiculous. And I learned that I didn't put enough sugar in my spruce tips syrup. Some of these, I washed them, and some of them are a bit sticky and resinous already, which is a good sign, because that's what I want. But I'm making a mess. I'm getting pine resin all over my hands, which will take a little bit of effort to get off, but it will be worth it, I hope. Oh yeah, see, look, pine resin. Whoops. Really much too uncoordinated for this. So I'm just, as I've seen other people do on Instagram, layering the sugar, brown sugar, so you get the water content, with pine cones. Try and get them each a little bit separate from each other, but touching the syrup. And then top it off with more sugar. And then we'll have to think of something to do with pine cone syrup, because I'm not exactly sure what that will be yet. I'll add a little bit more just to make sure they're covered, because it will ferment, but I want it to ferment and not mold. So that'll be the trick. And just not quite seal it 100%. And there's some hopefully future pine cone syrup. One quick note before I wrap this up. If you're foraging for anything to do something similar, please be careful of what you're foraging. There are a lot of deadly lookalikes in some families, like this poison hemlock family that looks an awful lot like carrots. They're all in the same family, parsley and whatnot. And there are a lot of deadly lookalikes, particularly in that family, so please be careful. And with that, I'll wrap this up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.